Greetings once again, and as always, Gordon Causey here, otherwise known as Gordy Canuck, I'm the host of my own little YouTube channel, A Canadian Take on News Events, Act 1, A Canadian Take on News Events. Today is the 22nd of July, 2025, and that's when I'll be uploading this video. There are so many different things happening in the world right now. I do pay attention to as much as I'm capable of. It can be overwhelming at times. We have all things about the Epstein files and the client list, or whether or not there is a client list. I believe there is. Then you have the newly created or updated International Health Regulations, IHR, to which Canada is a signatory, and they've updated the international health regulations, and only a handful of countries have pushed back on that. The United States, Israel, Slovenia, Iran, I think there are 7 or 8 countries that have refused to go along with the new updated international health regulations about how, when the next pandemic, and that's the way it's always framed, it's an inevitability, we are told that there will be another pandemic. And this is the manner in which the World Health Organization, the WHO, will confront it. And for me, it's a scary notion, the amount of power that countries like my native Canada are handing over to an internationalist, globalist body and ceding Canada's sovereignty. So that's one. Another issue in the world right now, of course, is the trade wars. They're never ending. Tariffs being imposed, tariffs being pulled back, tariffs being reimposed, all kinds of counter tariffs, uh, and the threat to the global economy. And then, of course, there is war. You can look at the war going on between Russia and Ukraine, or what I'm going to focus in on tonight, or today, if you like, whenever you're watching this, and that is the ongoing war between Hamas in the Gaza Strip and the nation state of Israel. And I'm going to be fixating for this video in on something called atrocity propaganda, which I get the impression that a lot of people maybe aren't overly familiar with it. Maybe this will be your first time hearing the term atrocity propaganda. But before I get rolling, I'll be reading what I have published to my Facebook timeline. But before I get rolling on that, you're welcome to hit like, you're welcome to subscribe to the channel, and to share out the content if you feel so inclined. At any rate, that's enough preamble. Let me get into what I wrote. And I titled it Atrocity Propaganda, Dehumanization, and Man's Inhumanity to Man. And if you're unfamiliar with the term, atrocity propaganda is as old as recorded history. As long as human beings have been fighting one another, atrocity propaganda has been around. And I first learned about it when I was studying up on the entry of the United States into World War One. Prior to the United States getting actively involved in what was once called the Great War, a lot of the citizens in the United States were actually inclined to support the Austrian-Hungarian side of the conflict, the Axis powers. A lot of Americans were of Germanic descent, so it shouldn't be surprising. So prior to the United States joining the war on the side of what were called the Central Powers, that included Britain, France, and Russia, there first needed to be a change in American attitudes towards the war. And many will point to the sinking of the Lusitania, which was a British passenger ship. And when it was sunk by a German U-boat, it resulted in the deaths of close to 1,200 people, and 128 of them were Americans. And the sinking of the Lusitania, it did impact American attitudes toward Germany, but you have to remember that this sinking, this tragedy happened in May of 1915. and the United States didn't enter the war for nearly 2 full years after that event. They didn't join the war until April of 1917. But in the interceding months and years, I would argue that propaganda played a big role in shaping public opinion about the US getting involved and for getting the US to side with those aforementioned Central Powers. In media reports, the Germans, they started to be labeled as quote unquote the Huns. The Huns were a group of nomadic people, Mongolia area from Asia, and they had been given the name the Scourge of God when they were led by Attila the Hun. And Attila the Hun was painted as pretty much an antichrist type figure, terrorizing Europe, terrorizing the old Roman Empire. Uh, so there's really no factual based reason for referring to people who are Germanic as Huns, but it served the purposes of propaganda. Uh, Basically, calling the Germans Huns was a marketing ploy. And to add more fuel to the propaganda, stories were written in American media about German soldiers cutting off the hands of Belgian children. And if it's in the newspaper, well, you know it must be true, right? And just try to imagine living 1914, 1918 during that war. Imagine trying to defend or to rationalize support for the Axis powers, for the Germans in World War One. You would be demonized, gaslit, gaslit the same way that people who refuse the COVID jabs or refuse to wear a mask, and go along with that stupidity. Remember how individuals like that, and that would include me, how people like me were treated during COVID. Uh, Good people supported doing everything necessary to defeat the evil Huns, just as so many people supported doing whatever it took to combat the quote unquote deadly coronavirus. Atrocity propaganda plays on emotion because ultimately human beings we don't operate on facts, we operate on feelings a large percentage of the time. And facts can be manipulated. Lies can be presented as truths, and woe to the person who can see through the lies, because that person is a very rare bird, and that clear sighted individual will be demonized. Which brings me to the situation in Gaza and the war going on between Israel and Hamas. Propaganda never dies. It existed long before World War One, World War Two. It existed. We certainly saw it in spades during those conflicts. Uh, propaganda was used to promote the COVID mandates, and it's alive and well in this conflict that's taking place on the Gaza Strip. Uh, Propaganda is based on lies, and in my experience, it works best when there's a shiny veneer of truth that is used to dress up the lies. Were Belgian children being killed by German forces during World War One? Undoubtedly. Were German soldiers amputating the hands of children? No. There was one solitary report that suggested such a thing might have happened, maybe once. And I would wager that it was likely that report that the propagandists, it gave them an idea about, hey, we can use this to sell the war, to get people on side. But atrocities, I have to admit, and I think any reasonable person would, atrocities in war are not new. And that takes me to the second point of this diatribe, of this video, and that's dehumanization of the enemy. Years back, I read a novel about ancient Greece many years ago, and two city states were engaging in something of war games. One city state's army was going up against another in a friendly war games type scenario. But before going into battle, the soldiers, they each took a piece of wood, like a stick, and they broke it in half. And both halves were given an identifying mark that would tie them back to the soldier. And one stayed with the soldier, and the other was collected and put to the side. And in the novel, this was presented as a metaphorical representation of what happens to a man in war. The broken half, the one that was left behind, was a representation of the soldier's humanity. And the part he kept with him was what I'll call his battle persona. Because in order to perform well in battle, a soldier was expected to leave their humanity behind. And then when the war games were over, the soldiers went to retrieve the other half of their broken piece of wood that identified them. People died during these games, so it in one fashion it served as a way of recording fatalities. But those who had survived, they would take the two pieces and put them back together. And the novel that I read described the soldiers breaking down in tears, getting all emotional as they were made whole again. And when I look at what is happening in Gaza, I have no problem accepting that atrocities are taking place because sadly, that is the nature of war. Soldiers for both Hamas and the IDF leave their humanity behind as they enter into an arena where survival is the ultimate goal. That old axiom of kill or be killed leads to a soldier's humanity being broken off, only to be retrieved later if they survive. And both sides in every conflict use propaganda to further the brutality and inhumanity of the conflict. Both Hamas and Israel engage in language that is designed to dehumanize their opponents. We hear words like monsters, demons, pure evil, and a lot more. These words are bandied about to make slaughtering the enemy justifiable, acceptable. And because of the polarized nature of this conflict between Israel and Hamas, it's impossible, in my mind, impossible to find a starting point. Both sides put on the mantle of righteousness while assigning the other the skin of a soulless, brutal animal that needs to be exterminated. Yeah, that's a cute little tiger cub now, looks all cute and friendly, but it's going to grow up to be a beast that will kill without remorse. So, back to the metaphor of the broken stick from the novel I was talking about. If you read up on the origin of the word holy, it derives part of its meaning from the word whole, as in WHOLE, whole, entire, complete. Things as they are meant to be. The king of this world, the king above all kings, the name above all names, Jesus Christ, is also known as the Prince of Peace. It's the enemy that wants us breaking ourselves in two. It's Satan that wants us to put away our humane side and give in to our animalistic desires that feed off this kill or be killed mindset that takes place on the battlefield. Bottom line, both Hamas and Israel, and me and you, we're all broken. We've all been snapped. And when it comes to war, our humanity can go away and give in to evil. When it comes to Hamas and Israel, neither side has the moral high ground. And there is no end to the depths to which either side can descend. It's simply a matter of capacity. How capable are they of going lower? If they can, they will. It's scary to contemplate the evil that all people can perpetrate when they divorce themselves from the Lord God, creator of all things. Now, this concept the concept of Jesus Christ. I get it. It's hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. And like I say, I get it. I mean, his earthly ministry that happened almost 2,000 years ago, and it took place at a time that is foreign to our modern world. And some can legitimately ask, why doesn't he come back now? Why doesn't Jesus return and offer the same proofs that he did 2,000 years ago? Surely, if people today saw him walking on water, healing the cripples, giving sight to the blind, raising the dead, if we saw these things today, people would believe, wouldn't they? And I will have some thoughts on that for a later video. That's another deep dive, as it were. But that's as much as I had to say right now. I realize how polarizing this conflict is, and I know there's a tendency. Virtue signaling is alive and well among all people. We all engage in it. We all want to be on the right side. And so we want to sort between who's more evil. And I'm here, my take on it, my personal view is that we're looking at evil and evil. And when it comes to evil, it's just a matter of, again, getting back to what I said, capacity. There is no end to the depths to which humanity cannot fall when we divorce ourselves from the Lord God, creator of all things. So I will leave you there and again invite you to like, to subscribe, to comment. I would be interested in any thoughts anyone has to offer on this. So God bless and hope to see you back. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it happens to be. See you again. Bye.